Excerpt from a local newspaper circa 2013. Ominous unknown killer is still at large. After a string of murders committed by an unknown assailant being dubbed the Pale Demon, a 10-year-old boy claims that he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely told police his story. Due to mental trauma, the child's grandfather declined an interview by our reporters, so the following excerpt is Officer Davis's retelling of the child's experiences. I had a bad dream and woke up in the middle of the night. I saw that for some reason the window was open, even though I remembered my mom closed it before leaving my room for bedtime. After shutting it again, I crawled under my Spider-Man blanket and tried to get back to sleep. That's when I had a scary feeling like something was watching me. I looked up and saw in the little ray of light, illuminating from between my curtains, was a demon with dark eyes and a big smile. It stood there, watching me. Finally, after what seemed like forever, he told me to go to sleep. Thinking it was a bad dream, I screamed, hoping I could wake up. That's when it attacked me. It jumped on top of me. I kicked it in the leg, hoping he would let me go, but the demon didn't let me go. That's when my dad ran into my room. The demon got off me and went after him instead. He pulled out what looked like a sharp object from his hoodie pocket and stabbed my dad in the belly. I quick crawled out the window in a desperate attempt to escape, but the demon must have clawed my ankle on the way out because I felt it grab my leg and give me a sharp cutting pain before looking back and seeing the demon's face one last time. After getting out, I limped down the street crying and bleeding from my leg until I came across a man walking down the other side of the sidewalk. After telling him what happened, he called the police and I was picked up later by a police car. Police are still on the lookout for this man. Descriptions of whoever this person is vary from account to account. However, after 3 months of non-stop murders, Police Chief Sergeant Garrick remains adamant that these murders are not unrelated or any signs of mass hysteria, but in fact is a real assailant on the loose. If you see anyone that fits the description in this story or see any unusual people in your area you may suspect, please contact your local police department or send an anonymous tip to +1 888-900-6800. 14-year-old Jeffrey Woods and his family were settling down in a new town. His dad had gotten a promotion at his job, which caused the Woods family to move. Jeff and his twin brother Liu couldn't complain, though. Neither one of them had any actual friends at their old school, and now they have a new, bigger house. What was not to love? As they started getting unpacked, one of their neighbors came by to greet the newcomers. "Hello," she said. "I'm Martha. I live across the street from you. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself and my 5-year-old son." She elbowed her son forward. "Billy, these are our new neighbors. Can you say hello?" Billy didn't say anything. He just turned around and ran back to play in his yard. "Oh, kids," Martha said with a laugh. "Well," said Jeff's mom, "I'm Barbara, and this is my husband Peter, and our 14-year-old twins, Jeff and Liu." They let their new neighbor in for lunch. During the conversation, Barbara invited them to her son's birthday. Their mother said that they would love to. Jeff set down the box he was carrying and interjected, "Mom, I didn't want to go anywhere this weekend." "You need to get out and meet new people, Jeff," scolded his mother. But Mom, Jeff stopped talking. He knew he wouldn't get anywhere after seeing his mom's stern face. When they were done unpacking, he walked up to his room and plopped down on his bed. He sat there looking at his ceiling when suddenly he got a weird feeling in his gut. It wasn't pain. It was an urge. An urge to do what? He thought to himself. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. Almost like he was compelled to do something he had no understanding of. He dismissed it as just some random feeling. He was probably just upset about moving. The next day was the first day of school for the brothers. As Jeff and Lou finished breakfast, their father walked into the kitchen. "Are you boys prepared for your first day of school?" "Yep," said Lou. Jeff remained quiet. He still wasn't very happy about the birthday party. "What about you, Jeff?" "Your father asked you a question, son," Barbara told Jeff sternly. "No, I don't think I am," Jeff said, looking up from his oatmeal to his father. "Well," Peter said before being cut off by his wife, "you boys should hurry. You might miss your bus." Jeff and Lou grabbed their backpacks and headed out the door. After the brothers left, Barbara turned to Peter and placed her hand on his shoulder. "They're just scared right now. It's a new town with new people." "I hope for our sake you're right," Peter said jokingly as he watched the twins leave the driveway. When Jeff and Lou made it to the bus stop, they were greeted by 3 kids. "Hey!" one of them shouted to the brothers. "Hey, you two! "Get over here," the kid shouted again, demandingly. "Should we just turn around and ask Dad for a ride?" Liu suggested. Jeff nodded, but before they could leave, one of the kids shouted, "That's what I thought, pussies." Jeff turned around almost instantly with a surprised look in his eyes. Liu could tell the kids were getting to him. Well, it looks like you guys aren't complete wusses." Jeff walked back towards the bus stop while Liu followed hesitantly. "Well, since you're new here, I'd like to introduce the crew. Over there is Keith." Jeff and Liu looked over to Keith. He appeared to be abnormally skinny for a 14-year-old. "And he's Troy." They looked over to Troy. He was the polar opposite of Keith. "He looks like this is the first time he's seen sunlight since he was born." Jeff thought to himself. "And I," said the first kid, "am Randy." "Now, for all the kids in this neighborhood, there is a small price for bus fare," Randy said, making a money motion with his hand. Liu stepped in front of Jeff. "We aren't paying you anything." Keith walked over to Liu and said sternly, "You better pay up or else." Liu responded by punching Keith in the face before Troy and Randy pulled out switchblades and pointed them at the brothers. "I was hoping you guys would be more cooperative, but it seems we have to do this the hard way." Randy walked up to Liu to take his wallet out of his pocket. As Jeff watched, he got that feeling again. Now it felt strong, very strong. While Randy was taking the lunch money out of Liu's wallet, Troy stepped in front of Jeff. Jeff watched as Randy put the loose cash in his pocket and dismissed Liu by waving his hand in a move-on motion. The feeling in Jeff's gut now felt like he was on fire from the inside of his stomach. His vision became tunneled as he peered at Randy, who was now walking towards him. Jeff punched Troy in the stomach, causing him to throw up all over himself and collapse to the floor. Upon seeing this, Randy rushed Jeff with his knife. He managed to stab Jeff in the side a couple times before Liu shoved him to the floor and picked up the knife Keith was using. Randy got back up. "Give the money back and we can forget this ever happened," Jeff yelled. "We own this neighborhood, kid. Our parents are the richest people in this town, so we don't have to answer to anybody." Randy shivs Liu in the shoulder, leaving him on the ground bleeding. Jeff tackles Randy to the ground. As the feeling in his gut reaches its peak, Jeff sits up and gets ready to plunge the knife into Randy, but starts feeling dizzy. His blood loss is starting to get to him at this point. He suddenly collapsed off of Randy. As he blacked out, the last thing he would see was the school bus pull up and Randy going in to talk to the bus driver. Jeff awoke in a hospital bed. Beside him were his parents and 2 police officers. "Son, we were told by these officers that you and Liu attempted to attack 3 boys this morning. Is this true?" Barbara asked Jeff sternly. "No. 3 kids were trying to rob me and Liu, and we were trying to defend ourselves," Jeff said. Barbara and Peter looked at each other briefly before both looking back at Jeff. "Don't lie to us, son. We were told by one of the kids that you and your brother Liu were attempting to attack the group after they made a comment towards you." "No!" Jeff yelled. "They're lying. He's lying. Mom, Dad, you believe me, don't you?" "One of the kids you beat up was my boss's son," Peter scolded. "My career is on the line here because of you and your brother's stupid decisions." "And how do you think I feel about my kids being criminals?" Barbara said. "Listen," one of the cops said, "we don't have to punish both of them. Randy said his brother was the one who started it." "Okay," Peter answered. "If you have to take him into custody, we understand." "No!" Jeff yelled. "You can't take Liu." "We don't have a choice, kid," the cop said. "The parents want to press charges." That night, Jeff laid in bed and stared at the pitch-black ceiling as he listened to his parents talk about him in the next room. Jeff had never been so miserable. That Saturday, Jeff was woken up by their mother. "Jeff, today's the day," she said, as she opened up the curtains and let light flood into their room. "What? What's today?" asked Jeff as he stirred awake. "The neighbor kid's birthday party. Don't tell me you forgot." "I didn't forget," Jeff responded. "All right, get dressed, then meet me and your father downstairs." After she walked out of the room, Jeff shrugged and got dressed. Jeff grabbed a pair of black dress pants and a white hoodie. Upon walking downstairs, he saw his mother and father all dressed up. "Let's go," Barbara said with a sigh as she herded Jeff and Peter out the door. They crossed the street over to Martha and Billy's house. As they walked inside, all Jeff could see were adults, no kids. "The kids are out in the yard, Jeff. Why don't you go out and play with them?" Martha suggested. Jeff walked outside to a yard full of kids. They were running around in weird cowboy costumes and shooting each other with plastic guns. Suddenly, a kid came up to him and handed him a toy gun and hat. "Hey, we're playing cowboys and outlaws. Want to play?" he asked. No, kid. I'm too old for this kind of stuff, Jeff responded. The kid looked at him with that weird puppy dog face. Please? Fine, said Jeff. He put on the hat and started pretending to shoot at the kids. He played with the kids for a while until Jeff heard an unusual, distant noise. It was a weird rolling noise that slowly got closer and closer, but before he could process what was happening, Randy, Troy, and Keith jumped over the fence on their skateboards. Jeff dropped the fake gun and ripped off the hat. Randy looked at Jeff with a burning hatred before kicking up his skateboard into his hand. "Hello, George, was it?" he said. "We have some unfinished business." Jeff stared at Randy with hate in his eyes. "It's Jeff, and fuck you." Keith and Troy looked at each other and laughed. "No need for hostility. You brought it on yourself when you challenged us," Randy responded. Jeff still had an astounding amount of hatred after his last encounter. "Okay then, if you want to prove how tough you guys are, then meet me behind the grocery store tomorrow at noon," Jeff challenged. Keith and Troy ignored him and started to approach Jeff, but Randy stopped them. "Fine," he said. "We'll be there. But if you chicken out on us, we'll beat you worse than we were planning to." Why would my parents believe them over me and Lou? He thought to himself. When he finally reached the parking lot, he was greeted by Keith and Troy. "Randy sends his regards," said Keith. Before Jeff could say anything, Troy rushed and tackled him to the ground. Jeff punched him in the side a couple times, but Troy didn't seem affected by it. Troy picked up Jeff by his hood and leg before proceeding to throw him into the grocery store wall. Jeff was bruised, but otherwise fine. "All right," Jeff said, getting to his feet. "You want to play rough? We can play rough." Jeff ran at Troy before kicking him in the balls. While he was kneeling on the ground, Jeff punched him across the face. Keith attempted to help but was being blocked by Troy. Keith attempted to grab at Jeff's hoodie, but Jeff threw Troy to the side and kicked Keith into the parking lot pavement. As Keith laid there, he started to laugh. "What's so funny?" asked Jeff. Keith pulled out a lighter and switched it on. "What's funny?" he said. "Is that you were stupid enough to come here." Just then, Randy from the top of the grocery store roof dumped a bucket of an unknown liquid over Jeff while Keith threw the lighter at Jeff. As soon as the flame made contact with him, the flames ignited the unknown substance. He had been made into a walking inferno, running out of the parking lot into the street when he was run over by a car. That's when he passed out. The last thing he would see before blacking out again was someone chasing the kids away and dialing 911. When Jeff woke, he had bandages wrapped around his face. He couldn't see anything, but he felt a cast on his shoulder and stitches all over his body. He tried to stand up, but the cast wouldn't let him. "I don't think you can get out of bed just yet," a nurse said as she put him back in his bed. Jeff sat there with no vision, no idea of what his surroundings were. Finally, after hours, he heard his mother. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Jeff couldn't answer, though. His face was covered, and he was unable to speak. "Oh, honey, I have great news. After witnesses saw those kids setting you on fire in the grocery store parking lot, Randy confessed to lying about you and Liu attacking them." Jeff sat in silence. He didn't move an inch. "You needed some random kids to tell you your own kids weren't lying?" Jeff thought to himself. "He's currently being held for questioning. He'll be out by tomorrow," a police officer said. Jeff's mother hugs Jeff and says her goodbyes. The next couple of weeks, Jeff spends healing from his burn wounds. Occasionally, his brother Liu would visit. Liu told Jeff how their parents still blame them for not diffusing the situation before it could get out of hand. Jeff was getting that feeling again. Only now it felt different. Now it felt sadder. It didn't burn, but instead felt cold. Then came the day where his bandages were to be removed. His family members were all there to see what he would look like. As the doctors unwrapped the bandages from Jeff's face, everyone was on the edge of their seats. They waited until the last bandage holding the cover over his face was almost removed. "Well," said the doctor, "moment of truth, you're mine? He quickly pulls the cloth, letting the rest fall from Jeff's face. Barbara screams at the sight of it. Lou and Jeff's dad stare awestruck. "What? What happened to my face?" He rushed out of bed and ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror and saw the cause of the distress. His face. It's horrible. He was missing his nose. His lips were burnt to a deep shade of red. His face turned pale white, and his hair singed from brown to black. He slowly put his hand to his face. It had this sort of leathery feel to it. "Jeff," Liu interjected. "It's not that bad." Not that bad, said Jeff. How am I supposed to show myself anywhere looking like this? His parents noticed that his left eye and hand were twitching. Jeff, are you going to be okay? Lou asked him. Yeah, I think I'll be fine. Barbara turned to the nurse. Is there anything we can do to fix his appearance? I don't want to go anywhere with him looking like that, she asked, horrified. Not as of right now. The best thing for him would be plenty of rest and prescribed lotion, the nurse replied. Okay, thank you. Barbara went over to Jeff. Jeff, sweetie, it's time to go. Okay, Mom. Barbara grabbed him by the arm and took him to get his clothes. This is what you came in with, said the lady at the desk. Jeff's mom looked down to see the black dress pants and white hoodie her son wore. They were clean of blood and stitched back together. Later that night, Jeff laid awake, unable to sleep. His face, his parents, those kids. Everything was going wrong, and they only seemed to be getting worse. I'm cursed, he thought to himself. I can never show my face anywhere again. I'm a freak. The feeling he had been feeling, he felt it again. This time, it was as strong as it had ever been. This is all my parents' fault. If they believed me and Lou, I wouldn't have been tricked into fighting Randy. I'm a freak, and it's all their fault. It was almost as if something had entered Jeff's soul and was making him think stuff. But soon, it wasn't only controlling his thoughts. Barbara awoke to a sound coming from the upstairs bathroom. Upon inspection, she was horrified to discover Jeff slowly cutting his face with a downstairs kitchen knife in front of the mirror. Jeff, what are you doing? Screamed his mother. Jeff looked over to his mom. His eyes looked lifeless, and in a calm voice he said, I'm a monster, Mom. I'm embracing it. Jeff's mother noticed his eyes ringed in black. Jeff, your eyes, what did you do? I burned them. I deserve nothing but to look at my deformed face for the rest of my life. Jeff's mother slowly started to back away. Why? Because I am what you made me. Barbara quickly ran from the bathroom and into her room as she shook Peter from his sleep. Peter, something's wrong with Jeff. She looked up to see Jeff in the doorway, holding a knife. You don't love me. Son, of course we love you, Barbara said. Then why didn't you believe me? Jeff retorted. Son, we didn't know, Peter said. You're both lying snakes. You had every opportunity to believe your own sons over some random kids, Jeff yelled. That was the last thing they heard as Jeff rushed them. After stabbing his parents to death, he gutted them both, leaving their organs wrapped up in their bloody blanket. He carried the organs wrapped in the blanket into his room and woke up his brother Lou. Lou! He said. We're free, Lou. His brother Lou woke up to the horror of his twin brother's further deformed face. Jeff? Yes, Lou, it's me, Jeff. We're finally free. Wow, what are you talking about? Jeff drops the blanket on the floor, letting it unfold to show all of the body organs inside. Jeff, what the fuck? Mom and Dad are dead, Lou. We can finally be happy together, just you and me. Isn't that what you wanted? Lou stared at Jeff in the dark. Not a word was spoken for what felt like days. Finally, Lou broke the silence. Jeff, Lou had tears in his eyes. He couldn't bear to see Jeff in such a state of delusion. I didn't want any of this, but they falsely imprisoned you. Jeff, I understand if you were angry about that, but that doesn't mean I wanted you to kill them. Jeff looked at the guts he had presented Lou, then looked back up. Then you're no better than they are. Jeff pounced on top of Lou, putting his hand over his mouth. Lou struggled, but couldn't seem to escape Jeff's grip. Jeff slowly raised the knife, getting ready to plunge it into Lou's heart. Shh, Jeff said. Go to sleep.